Hello, and welcome to the Art of Intuition podcast. My name is Susan Jane, and I believe that trusting your intuition is the best way to live your life with meaning and purpose. Each week you will hear about how you can connect, develop, and trust your intuition through interviews with other guests and my own personal experiences. Join me to understand how your intuition can guide you towards a life full of meaning and loving purpose. Hello, welcome to the Art of Intuition podcast. I'm Susan Jane, your host for the podcast. And today we have Neil Elliott on. Now it's Neil Elliott, and I'm going to get into the details of that later, but I need to make sure you got that right because of his website and where we're going. But before we start, share, subscribe, like, push the podcast around, get everybody on the same track so we're all starting to look like perfect light workers and helping each other to get a better life and a better understanding. What you may notice on the podcast is I am actually starting to change the name a little bit, and I'm calling it The Voice of Intuition, because the Art of Intuition is more to do with my workshops where we actually create art and we do readings on them. So this is now becoming The Voice of Intuition. So I hope you don't mind the change. I hope you like the change, and we're going to go from there. But before we go any further with me or with what we're doing here, I want to introduce Neil to you. Now, Neil has had a pretty, and I can't say a tough life because that's not right for me to say, but there was areas in his life that he has on his website that were pretty tough. And as a result of that, he has created an amazing book. We're going to be talking about the book. We're talking about what's happening in that book, but more importantly, we're going to talk about how Neil has get through it, has been able to get through it all. But without any further ado, gosh, I've got my tongues all bloody tied and everything today. But here is Neil. Come on in, Neil. Sorry about that.
Hi, Susan. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to meet you and be here today.
The pleasure is going to be ours, I can assure you. All right, well, let's get stuck into it because obviously my tongue isn't working so well this morning. I want to know, or the listeners want to know, Neil, how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And we'll keep that one short just so everybody, has some context. So currently, I think for context, born in 1960, so I'm currently 61 years old. I've lived in Canada my whole life. Lived just south of Vancouver, British Columbia. 2 marriages, second marriage between my wife and I. We have 3 kids and I have 5 grandkids. And the important aspect is that I'm a professional engineer with an MBA, and I've worked in the hydroelectric industry for over 30 years. And you'll understand why it's important that I say that as we go through this conversation. So I grew up in the 60s. My father passed away when I was 5 years old. I'm the youngest of 6, no life insurance, and my mom needed to get a job right away and go out and start earning money to support the family. And we'll get into more of all of this, but from 2002 to 2015, I slowly sunk into this really deep and despondent depression. And in 2015, I realized that I was in this depression. And now no one knew this. My wife didn't know it. My family, any of my work colleagues didn't know it. We're all great actors in our environment. We put forth whatever, we want to put forth for people to see, be it clients, friends, or family. And so I kept all of this hidden. I didn't talk about it. But what I did is I picked up some new spiritual books issued by, well-known authors, Dr. Wayne Dyer, etc., and was reading, kind of the evolving spiritual wisdom at the time and all the processes, and tried to change my consciousness in terms of how I thought. And I tried this in the 90s and it didn't make it work. All great authors at that time too, but it didn't make it work. And And then anyway, so in 2015, I started to read these books. And although they were all great and they all offered great things, I just could not fundamentally change how I thought to get out of this depression. So it ended up that in 2017, our house had been on the market for a number of years, 6-7 years, and it finally sold. My wife got on a plane to go to Toronto, Ontario, Canada, to visit her brother and family. And I sat down at a kitchen table and crafted a suicide note. And I was planning that suicide out for a few months. I wanted to say goodbye to family and friends without them knowing what I was going to do. And I wanted to make sure my wife would be financially okay. And about a week prior to me sitting down at that table, some material had come to me that promised to liberate me from my thinking. And I thought, okay, being an engineer, I thought, okay, well, I'm planning this out. What I can do is I can push out that date. I can give this a go. If it doesn't work, then so be it. I'll pull the trigger. If it does work, then great. Almost a year to the day when I started this process, I woke up and I was full of inner peace and joy and love. I felt totally abundant and prosperous. And I had never felt like that before. It was totally liberating. And I had this new verve for life. And about a month after that, so 13 months after I started this process, I entered into 2 meditations. They were about 2 days apart. And I went into this state of meditation. And what happens when you go through this process is you go through different frequencies of consciousness. And at a high, so I went into this meditation. I got to a very high vibrational frequency of consciousness. And I felt totally bathed and enveloped in unconditional love. And I didn't care what happened to my body. I didn't care what happened in the past. I didn't care about anything. I felt I was not judged for anything I'd done in the past. And I was in this state, and it's so hard. We just do not have the human language to describe it. But I was in this state of this unconditional love. And, it was so incredible. And I just wanted to stay there forever. I came out of it, of course. And then a couple of days later, I had the same experience. And at that point, then I just wanted to share this knowledge from the rooftops that I believe everybody should read and make a choice for themselves. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to be looked at like an idiot if I do that. So it took me a couple of years to figure out the best way to do it is to write a book, to share my story, to share the process I went through. It's a very concrete process that bridges this gap between spirituality and science, and leverages what we know in today in science to help bridge that gap. And so that's where we are. That's kind of how I got to where I got.
Wow, I love how you explained that, in the fact that the way that depression just creeps up on you, and you really aren't aware of it until it's happened over a period of time. And then all of a sudden you start to go, oh, I didn't realize how deep I was in it. And so consequently that length of time for you to start almost falling into depression, even though you aren't, but almost falling into it. But then how you explained it took that time to come out of it. And there's so many choices that we can make, and so many books, and I know the books that you talk about, I've read most of them myself, but there's so many books and so many areas that we look at that we can connect with, or sometimes we just don't, or we're not ready to connect. And I love how you've explained that how gentle you were on yourself, because when you're living that, we're not that gentle on ourselves. Yet when we can look back in retrospect and we can sort of go, this is what happened, we can be a lot more gentle on ourselves, and it allows us to grow and open and change. So that was an amazing story, Neil. I felt it as you were going along. I understood this way that depression that just gets hold of us without realizing. But to be sitting at that kitchen table, writing your suicide note is like, holy, I don't think I've been quite that far. So I'm really, really feeling it. So you've done that. You've had this beautiful moment, and it's not just a moment, because you can have those moments more than once. You can have them more often. It is just how much time and effort you want to put into that too. So, but I know when I've had that moment, you don't need to. How can I explain? What I found was, because I've had that moment and I've had it once or twice before, you get to stage where you go, I know I can do that. So I don't need to now. I need to go forward and have a look at where I've got to go, where I want to go, and how I want to do that. So anyway, sorry, I've gone off tangent. I want to know a little bit more about your book now, or what was the next stage? What did you do next? I'm going to put the book up on the banner so people can see what the book is if you're talking about it too. So tell me a bit more about how you went in to actually write this book.
Yeah, absolutely. Just you see the banner there with the name of the book on it and stuff. First thing I'll mention is that my recommended way to read A Higher Road is to read it from cover to cover, understand the process in its entirety, and then make a conscious choice for yourself whether it's something, if it rings true for you, if it resonates with you, then either go back and start with some of the science material or directly with step one. If it doesn't resonate with you, then either keep it and read it 10 years from now, or just pass it on to somebody else. If you've bought a hard copy in print or trade paperback or hard copy, then please just pass the book on to somebody else without colorful commentary. And the reason I say that is because we can never accurately judge the inner reality of another person. So just because it didn't resonate with you, it might resonate with somebody else, but they need to go through this process of discovery on their own and make their own choice of whether it makes sense for them. And if it does, it may be the biggest and best gift that you've ever given anybody, because it can totally transform their lives. So about the book. So I look back now, and we're going to talk about a number of things now that we've opened this up. But I look back now and say that the books that I picked up from 2015 to 2017 and were reading, a few of them were laying a foundation for me to open up my consciousness to be able to accept this new material that I received, about a week before I sat down to craft the suicide note. And so in the 90s, I'll back up a little bit. In the 90s, I wanted to change how I thought. I wanted a more positive attitude. And that's kind of when positive thinking and stuff materialized for me anyway. And so I picked up Wayne Dyer and Caroline Myss and those kinds of books, Tony Robbins, Napoleon Hill. And I followed those processes at that time. I spent about 10 years on it. And I couldn't fundamentally shift how I changed. And the reason is because each of us develop these individual patterns of thinking and feeling that we reinforce over a lifetime. And we embed that thinking into our subconscious mind. So in order to actually fundamentally change your thinking, you need a process. First, you need to be able to understand some fundamental things, and I'll talk about that. And then you need a process to actually break that thinking up in your subconscious and dissolve it, so that you have a chance at changing your patterns of thinking. So this foundation being laid for me. So the first thing that happened was I came to understand that consciousness, I used to think it was all in my brain, and anything I thought was created in my brain, and I cobbled it together. I came to understand that consciousness is really not only in our brain, but in our body and all around us. And I now see consciousness more as a stream of thoughts that go by my awareness, and I pick a thought out of that stream, and I look at it. If I don't like it, I throw it back in the stream. If I like it, I keep it, and I dwell on it, and I think about it. And the things that I like are thoughts that I pick out that are consistent with my thinking. So it might be a loving and kind thought, or it could be a, denigrating, hateful, angry thought. But if it's consistent with our pattern of thinking, we keep it, we dwell on it, and we build on this reservoir of thinking that just reinforces how we currently think. So I read a book that introduced me to this concept that everything that we think is just a belief. Whether it's we believe it to be right or wrong, true or false, good or bad, it's really just a belief, full stop. So that was the first thing that I read, and I share all of this in A Higher Road, but that's the first thing I read that started to put this little fissure in my thinking and open me up to thinking that, okay, well, if everything I think is really just a belief, that means I have an opportunity to change those beliefs. But I still need this process to get to this subconscious programming. The second book I read was a book on epigenetics that described and explained that everything we think can affect the expression of a cell. So we can either draw health and well-being to that cell, or we can think things that are contrary to the health of that cell. And this is all based in science and research, which was fundamental for me from an engineering perspective. I tend to have that propensity where I like to be able to observe, measure, calculate things, and then I find it believable. So this was just laying this foundation for me. The third set of books that were important for me to read was a books on neuroplasticity. And I read one in particular that was very easy to read and understand. And it was delightful to read, actually. It was a well-written book. And they used specific examples of people that might have experienced a brain injury, for example, that had negative effects from this brain injury. And then what they did to actually change their thinking. And prior to the 1960s, science believed that the brain grew to a certain size and then it atrophied over time. And in the 1960s, they discovered that you can change how you think in your brain. So the neural pathways, the way information flows through the brain, you can change that through certain processes. And the other thing they discovered was that you could grow new brain cells. So those are two important things. And then, excuse me, I'm just getting a drink of water.
Yep. The other thing I wanted to say, while you're saying that too, Neil, I have read books on neuroplasticity. It is really interesting. I'm wondering if it's the same book because I can't remember the name of mine, but I find that really interesting. And like you, I like to have an understanding. I don't just, it needs to be concrete, be secure. I need to have that understanding as I go along so I know what things are about and what they do. I call it theory testing. I'm a theory tester. So when I read a book, I test that theory. And if it works, I will continue with it. If it doesn't work for me, that so be it. It's not resonating with me. So yeah, I know where you stand with that. That neuroplasticity was amazing. Keep going.
Yeah, no, and that's good. And off the top of my head, I can't remember what the names of these books are either, but they are in A Higher Road. I've shared them. And so then the third thing I read was a book about a woman, an author that had a near-death experience. And she went from, so there's a woman that suffered from 4 years of an aggressive cancer. And at the end of that 4-year period, her body was riddled with tumors from her waist to her head. And she dropped from a healthy body weight to, about 75 to 95 pounds. I don't remember the exact number. And she couldn't lift up her head. She couldn't keep it up. And she required oxygen 24 hours a day. And she required 24/7 care. And she fell into a coma. They rushed her to the hospital. And the admitting physicians told her husband and family that she wouldn't make it through the night. 24 hours later, she woke up and she declared she'd be okay. And within 2 weeks, they couldn't find a trace of cancer in her body. So again, all the fact that this happened is all medically documented in hospital records They call it a spontaneous remission. They don't know what it is. But the important piece of this is what she described in that 24-hour period when she was in the coma. And she came back with certain messages, a number of them. A few of them were that we come from unconditional love and we return to unconditional love. We're unified after we die. We're not judged, no matter what we do here on earth. And she felt like she was expanding to be part of everything in the universe. So whether it's a rock, a tree, a plant, another person. So these are some of the messages she brought back. That, to me, was believable, but not understandable. And the believable part was because it happened and medically documented. That helped me have this foundation of, okay, this sounds accurate. And then her description was so clear and vivid. It's something that I could believe to be true. Didn't understand it, but believed it to be true. That book, what I pulled out of that book at the time, alleviated this nagging Christian doubt I had. I grew up agnostic, but still this Christian doubt I had that if I committed suicide, I'd pay a penalty for that after I died. And it alleviated that. We're not judged after, no matter what we do here. And so that gave me the permission to actually sit down and craft this suicide note to go through with that. And then I had this blueprint material. And so, Susan, do you want to jump back in and just, we're headed down a longer road here. Are you okay with this?
Yes. Oh, look, I'm fascinated. Yeah, I'm loving it. I know we've sort of jumped a little bit off the mark, but I'm going to change that. But no, I'm loving where you're going, and it's so synchronistic. Like, I've had a near-death experience. But I didn't have the proof that this lady has, and I'm just I'm loving it. Keep going, please.
Okay, well, we can talk about your near-death experience another time because I'd like to know more. Yeah. So, so then this material. So what was happening is, as I was reading these science books and then this near-death experience, what was really happening was I was, fundamentally understanding that whatever we think as right, wrong, true, false, good, bad is just a belief. And therefore we can change our beliefs. We just need a process. That our thinking affects our health and our brains, and that we come from unconditional love. So wherever we go after we pass away, and that we're not judged, and that consciousness is bigger than even what I thought it was. And then I got this other material, and this other material, what it does is it provides you the information that you will learn new knowledge, and it bridges this gap between spirituality and science. It does this final bridge. And then there's a specific process that you go through, and learning a meditation as well that goes with this, that will enable you over a period of time to spiritualize your mental thinking, grow new brain cells that are impressed with new knowledge under the top of your head. I'll describe this a little bit more, and make a connection back with the divine. And so we'll call, whether you want to call it God or Yahweh or Allah or the source of our being or creator, whatever, there's only one creator. And you will learn what was before the Big Bang, the impetus for the Big Bang, what happened at the time of the Big Bang, and then how and why creation came about. And you'll also learn the mechanics and the mechanisms that we use moment by moment to create every event and every experience that comes into your life. And as you go through this process and this knowledge building, and you go through this process of inner cleansing and rebuilding, you get assistance from the divine. So I'll call it the divine in the moment. You get assistance from the divine, which will help you with your process of breaking up and dissolving these consciousness forms in you, or that you've embedded, patterns of thinking that you've embedded in your subconscious, and help you cleanse them and then realign with the gold. I call them the golden aspirations of divine consciousness, to be in alignment with where you actually come from. You will also learn and understand the reason of why we are here in this school we call Earth, and what your process is via evolution of a soul. And you will be reincarnated many times to go through this evolutionary process as your soul. Your soul is here to learn specific things and experience specific things on its individual evolutionary process, to be able to at some point wake up to the fact of what it's doing to itself through these mechanisms of the ego, and go through this process of inner cleansing, of reconnecting with the divine. And when you fully transcend your ego, you will be, whether it's this lifetime or some future lifetime, you will step into the light and you will not have to be reincarnated again. So go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I just had to step in because you are so, it is just resonates with me so much in my experience. So let me just explain to you what I believe intuition is. So intuition to me is the communication between the spiritual side of us to the physical side of us. And the spirit or the soul or that aspect is what reincarnates time after time after time, and the body obviously disintegrates and goes its merry way. So when you're talking about things like that, it just makes so much sense. You've done it analytically, you've done it educationally wise, you've researched it, you've learned it. I did it through experience. So there was times in my life when I've left my body, and once was during a very, very violent pack rape, and I left my body and watched it happening. And in doing so, I realized that as a spirit, we don't have an emotional connection to the body. We can just watch it. It's just happening. It's there. And then the near-death experience was the same sort of principle. It gave me that really, really clear understanding that there is two very, very distinct areas. One is spiritual, one is physical. The spirit doesn't work on the physical realm. So the physical has the 5 senses. The spirit doesn't have those. So they come into this body to understand the different areas and to learn. So yes, I absolutely agree. And so I'm going to stop talking because I'm just loving where you're going. It's just amazing. Keep going, Neil.
Thank you. There's just so much to talk about. We could spend hours on this, but the ego. So I'll talk about, so what you need to learn to live spiritually proactive lives is you need to understand the difference between universal consciousness, divine consciousness, and human consciousness. And human consciousness is, it's ephemeral. It is electromagnetic impulses. The ego is a tool of creation to individualize the unity of divine consciousness to have these materialized experiences. The ego is formed at the time of conception, and the soul is infused in part of that process. Soul remains in silence and stillness, and the ego takes control of how you think and how you feel. So when you first come in, you come in with things that you haven't dealt with in a past life. And then you are born into this environment, and, the mind doesn't develop until you're about age 5 to consciously make its own choices about things. So up until that age, what you are is you're this sponge absorbing everything that's in your environment. Feelings, people's talking, their thinking, their patterns of thought, what their beliefs are, what your religion is. So you'll be reincarnated into varying genders, into varying places of origin, varying colors of skin, varying religions, varying experiences of being highly educated, no education, poor, or wealthy. And all of these are to create these various experiences for the soul to learn the lessons it needs to learn and enrich the environment of the divine. So this is now just me talking this last little bit. Enrich the environment of the divine, because the divine and the universal is unconditional love. So in order to experience other things, it need to create a mechanism so that we use these very limited tools of creation to create these experiences for ourselves. And you'll understand what all of these tools are, and I'll talk a little bit about them. But so we create these varying things until one day we wake up and realize that letting our egos have control of our life creates all of these sometimes happy, sometimes poor, sometimes bad, sometimes good things in our life. And we wake up and realize that there is a better way to live. We are not here to please God. We are here to express God, and God is unconditional love. And when your soul finally wakes up and it has this, and you have this knowledge as a human in human consciousness, you can work with your soul to allow your soul to gain mastery of your ego, to connect back with the divine, and to allow you to be part of this process to learn how to express God while you're here. And that's express unconditional love to everyone and everything. And when you go through this process, it happens slowly, it happens imperceptibly, but it happens. And if you're diligent and you're persistent with it, your life will evolve in a way that you cannot imagine. And I look back now and can observe that, oh, that's how I thought and stuff. And I can't even imagine ever thinking like that again. And when I see someone today, I see them as a soul, a fragment of divine consciousness that is equal to my soul, that is unconditional love. And anything that they're doing that I may consider negative or reprehensible or even good is just their path to the light. Their ego is using these tools of creativity unknowingly, ignorantly, and they are creating all these events and experiences in their life and affecting others, but it's part of their process as their path back to the light to actually understand who and why and they're here, and to get through this evolutionary process to be able to begin to transcend their ego and express the divine while they are here. Do you have any questions?
No, I'm just blown away. No, I just, whoa. Obviously I needed to hear this morning too. All right. Now what's happening, Neil, as much as I'm loving this, we are starting to get a little bit low on time. You talked about the tools. Can we just quickly brush over those tools? I'd love to get that understanding of those tools that we're using, or the ego is using, was it?
Yes. Okay. So let me brush over the tools, and then I could spend another 10 minutes on describing it in a way which provides deeper understanding. But, the tools, so the ego is created as a tool to split divine consciousness into individuality. The universal consciousness is what many call God, and it is these opposing impulses, the impulse of will and the impulse of purpose. When it was split into divine consciousness, these two impulses of will and purpose are seen as the forces of electromagnetism. So we utilize the tools of electromagnetism to create every event and every experience that comes into our life. Will is a consciousness plan. So you think with electrical impulses in the brain and you feel with magnetic impulses in the nervous system. Your will, your use of will through your ego can only draw happiness to you or protection and security through you through these two mechanisms of electromagnetism. So it bonds with everything it likes. I like chocolate cake. I like that person. I like that event. And it bonds with that. It rejects things it doesn't like. I don't like that person. I don't want to go there. I don't want to go to that country. I don't like that event, etc. And so it creates this illusion of security and happiness. But we all know that, material wealth, for example, you go out, I want a new car, you buy a new car, you're happy with that new car. And then it starts to wear off. So you show it to your friends, you get a little boost because, hey, look at my new car. And, you feel good. And then eventually that wears off. So you set another goal, you go out. And life becomes this whole thing of chasing goals until we wake up to the fact that all material wealth and all these things that we gain, we hang on to, don't really provide happiness. Life is a journey within. And when you understand that life is a journey within, and we use these tools of creativity to create these consciousness blueprints that over time we magnetize with our feelings, whether it's a feeling of anger and hate or love, like attracts like, and you magnetize those blueprints of consciousness that you create with your thinking, and eventually they will magnetize and manifest as a like experience or event into your life. And that is what we do until we wake up and our soul, we start to make this connection with the divine. We start to allow our soul to have more control over our thinking and understand we need to come back into alignment with the divine. And when we do that, your life changes.
Wow. Okay.
I said all that quickly.
Oh, no. Yeah. I've read about the that side of it too, the magnet and the electrons. That is really interesting too. Look, the thing is, Neil, I could have a whole podcast just on that sort of side of it when you're talking about that. And so we've sort of brushed over so many things, and it's all I want to do is go, okay, I want to talk about that. No, I want to talk about that. No, I want to talk about that. So I've really loved where we're going. But I have to say, we've only got another 5-10 minutes. So I just want you to put forward what you want to put forward now. But before we go, hang on. We talked about the book, and I have got it going up on the ticker. But remember, this is a podcast as well. So I need to say that the book is called A Higher Road: Cleanse Your Consciousness to Transcend the Ego and Ascend Spirituality by D. Neil Elliott. So I needed to say that. And the website is www.dneilelliott.com. So you can get the book there as well. But sorry, I had to just jump in there because we forgot to mention the actual thing on the podcast. But we've got to sort of close up. You've gone through the book, and so that's what you've got in your book. And in that book, you've got the 7 processes that help us get there. Can we just brush over those, just even if it's just the headings, just so we've got that understanding of where we're going, because we know we can get the details and really deep down into it? Or have we gone through that already?
No. So I can just give you kind of why don't I give you an overview? So the first thing is to stretch your consciousness, is to go through this science chapter and then this near-death experience to actually stretch your consciousness. The second step is Truths Unveiled. So I call it Truths Unveiled, and this is where I share this compendium of all of this material I gathered to read that bridges this gap between spirituality and science. The third step is a reflection. You're going to reflect on your life. You're going to write yourself a letter. It's only for you. You're going to lock it away. And it's going to be a letter that really describes, and there's a process to go through, so you get some help with that. But it really describes exactly how you feel about life today. Are you happy with it, or would you rather just call it quits? The fourth step is to go through this process of inner cleansing. And there's a specific list of things that you need to initially cleanse. And so there's a process of cleansing. The fifth step is to rebuild your consciousness with these golden aspirations of divine consciousness. And the sixth step is learning this meditation. And you don't learn it till later in the process. And the reason is because you need to gain this new knowledge and new understanding so you understand your target when you go into this meditation. It's a meditation that will take you into silence and stillness, and you will stop all of your thinking. And you get to a place where you will be able to increase your frequency of vibration by building new brain cells under the skull, at the top of the brain, and you'll be able to reconnect with the divine. And when you do that, then you get divine assistance through continually going through this process. The seventh step is a rinse and repeat. So you're going to rinse and you're going to go back and you're going to do you're going to continue this work of inner cleansing and rebuilding of your consciousness and learning this and following this meditation practice.
Yeah, I love that idea, because people think that they can just jump on this path and then they go from point A to point B and, oh, we're done. This is it. I've done all the things I'm supposed to. I'm finished. But we don't. Because we've got to learn again on another level, and we keep on repeating it and rinsing it. Like you say, it's learning over and over and over again. And that's the beauty of it, to look back and sort of go, okay, I'll reflect on that again and look at it in a different way. And that's, like you're saying, that's how you're building those new brain pathways. Yeah. Neil, that was amazing. I'm definitely going to jump on and grab your book, because I think it's one of those types of books that I have read so many others. You're actually putting together it all into one into one section. So you've got one book where you can get that understanding of each different areas, and you can follow those processes quite easy. Whereas you read a lot of the other books and it's just one of that process and one of this process, where you've actually popped them all together, which is really, really interesting. You're going to find that there are people that are on and I don't mean to say a higher spiritual level, that have done some of the work, are going to get a lot more out of it than others that may find it, like you say, they might read it and go, no, it's not for me yet. But it will come to you. If you buy it, you can guarantee that if you're not ready for it now, you will be ready for it later, because you've actually got your mindset open for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you never know until you read it and discover for yourself. So, there's many different paths. This one, to me, I wanted to share with people because it was concrete and it made sense and it was rational and it was logical and it's easy to follow. I'll tell you, this information that I'm sharing with people, there's not very many people that know this at all. And, it's very few people that know this. And my goal is to get more people to understand this so that we can individually change, come back to expressing unconditional love to everything and everyone in our environment, and bring this world into a new era of love and peace.
Yeah. Oh, that's so lovely. Oh, sorry. You're opening different things. I'm like I said, I'm a theory tester, so I'm going to grab your book and I am going to test it, because that's just who I am. But I liked how you said, read it through first, get an understanding of what is entailed, like what is the almost the expectation. If this is what you want, then this is what you're going to need to do. And then go back and do each section and actually do each section. Even writing a letter to yourself, how you're feeling now, is very, very challenging for some people. It can be really, in their face, and it's not necessarily what they want to see or how they want to see it. And one of those really simple questions is saying, well, if you won $1 million, because a lot of people use money as an excuse not to go forward. If you won $1 million, what would you have different in your life? And I can sit back and go, well, actually not a lot really. I would probably drop work, but I'd still be doing this work because this is my passion. And that's when you start to sort of get an understanding of what your life is really about and what excuses you're using. So I just love it. It's really good. It's called The Higher Road, Cleanse Your Consciousness to Transcend the Ego and Ascend Spirituality by D. Neil Elliott. The other thing I want to mention, Neil, too, is that in all the podcasts that I've done, and I'm nearly up to my 100th episode next week, I think, of all of them I've done, I have not allowed anyone to sit here and just talk about their book. But you have just blown my mind. And I have to be open and honest here. I wasn't sure where this interview was going to go. And I am so glad I left it up to the lap of the gods, as I would say. It's been an amazing story, an amazing interview. It wasn't an interview. You talked. I loved it. I just listened. So I want to thank you so much. Have you got any last little parting words that you want to share with us before we go?
Oh, there's so much that I would love to share, but just didn't have the time. But, I think the important thing is for everyone to understand that you are where you are for a reason and a purpose. And you can, if given the right knowledge, you need to be open and you need to be curious and you need to be no preconceived notions or judgments. But if you're in that state, and I've built a higher road to help you get there, if you're in that state, you can totally, with new knowledge and new process and something that's concrete, you can totally transform your life. You can have an entirely different experience of where we are and what we're here to do on earth. And I tell you, it will be amazing and magical.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Thank you so much for being on the show. Guys, grab the book. I'm going to definitely grab the book because I just think it's one of those ones that it's a really good book that we can use as almost a to-do list. So when you're ready, you just read it all to start with. When you're ready, go through each section, and there's so many aha moments you'll get. It's just amazing. So thank you so much, Neil. That was just wonderful. Thank you. I'll wrap it up now. Sorry, I'll just have to go on. Hang on, let me work this out. I'm still trying to work out how we play with these buttons. But guys, that was really, really good. I was just mesmerized in his voice and what he was saying and how it was being said, and listen to the podcast again, get a better understanding of what was going on, because Neil was so in depth with it. There's a lot of things that you could miss. He'll say I was saying something, and your thoughts go off on a different tangent with what he was saying, and then you miss the next part. So listen to this one again, and I've never said that before in the podcast, but listen to it again and get a better understanding of where it's going, because that was incredible. Most of the podcasts I have, I've worked on a level where I'm hoping people understand the terminology. Neil took us up to another level, and we're using different terminology. So I hope you're following along with this. But that's it from me. Share, like, subscribe to the podcast, send it out there, and give us a tick and tell us how much you enjoyed it, because we would really love to hear from you. But that's me. I'm Susan Jane. All the best. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now.